Today we're starting on lesson 2 and we're talking about how do living things get energy. Plants get energy from the sun. Animals get energy from plants or from other animals that eat plants. Sources of energy. Green plants make their own food. A living thing that makes its own food is a producer. Take out your notes. How do living things get energy? Plants are producers. Because they make their own food, right? They produce it. They make their own food. What do they use? Producers use energy from sunlight to make food out of matter from the air and soil. They use sunlight. You can add an E to the end of that so it says you, not us. Producers use sunlight to make their food. Living things that must find food to eat are what? Many living things cannot make their own food. It's like you and me, right? We can't make our own food. They must get their energy from the food that they eat. A living thing that eats food is a consumer. Now, some of you might say, I know how to make food. I can make something. That's not what this means. It means our bodies can't make it itself. Right? Our bodies can't make food, so we must consume. We must eat food. Things that eat plants are called herbivores. Talked about this when we went when we had our zoo Zoom call. All right, plant eaters are called herbivores. Meat eaters are called carnivores. And then omnivores eat both plants and meat. It's like us, right? We eat plants, we eat a salad. We also eat meat, we eat chicken. Okay? Now let's look through our book to find some examples. Consumers eat plants. Some consumers eat plants, others eat animals, and some eat both. A consumer that eats only plants is an herbivore. A consumer that eats only animals is a carnivore, and a consumer that eats both plants and animals is an omnivore. So if we look here, we can see an example of a cattail here. A cattail, this plant, sorry, you can't see it. This plant is a producer because the sun gives energy to this plant and it produces its own food. The crayfish then is a consumer because it must eat food to get its energy. So when a crayfish eats cattail, it gets its energy. Let's look here. We've got 3 examples. We've got sheep, wolf, and bear. Sheep are herbivores because they eat only plants. Plant eaters are, an example would be sheep. Another one you might think of is like a deer. A deer eats plants. Meat eaters, carnivores, we see a wolf. Right, a wolf right here. A wolf is a carnivore. It eats only meat. You could think of a lion. A lion would also be a carnivore. And then we've got animals like bears that are omnivores. They eat both. A raccoon would also be an omnivore. Now, when we talk about how all these things interact, we're talking about food chains. Let's look at the top of this page. Energy passes to living things within food chains. Food chains are groups of producers and consumers that interact in a special way. A consumer eats a producer. The producer passes energy to that consumer. That consumer may then become prey for another consumer. Think about this. If we think about this wolf and this sheep and this wolf. If the consumer, the sheep, eats a plant, that producer passes energy to the sheep. then that sheep may become prey for another consumer. Uh-oh, what if the wolf eats it? Then all of a sudden, sheep has become prey for the wolf, and that wolf as a consumer got energy from another consumer, the sheep. Prey is any animal that is hunted by others for food. So food chain shows how energy passes from one living thing to the other. Here, complete the food chain, we might have the sun, which gives energy to the grass, and the grass might give energy to a sheep or any other animal that eats it, a cow. All right, so consumers can eat producers. They can eat plants, or they can eat other consumers. Carnivores would be eating other consumers. Omnivore would be eating both producers and consumers. And then consumers can become prey for a predator. The prey passes energy to a predator. A predator is a consumer that hunts for food. In this way, energy can move from a producer to a predator. As each living thing uses food energy, some energy is given off as heat. So this raccoon is an omnivore. It eats crayfish, it eats other animals, and it also eats plants. That's where we'll stop for today. I've got a short video after this to help remind you about producers, consumers, and omnivores. Tomorrow we'll talk more about food chains.
All animals, no matter where they live, need the same things: water, shelter, and food. But different animals eat different things. Scientists divide most animals into 3 categories depending on what they eat. An animal that eats mostly meat is called a carnivore. A lion is a carnivore. Lions hunt and eat other animals, such as zebra. An animal that eats only plants is called an herbivore. The zebras in the park eat grass and other plants. They are herbivores. An animal that eats meat and plants is called an omnivore. A baboon is an omnivore. Baboons eat plants, but they also eat meat. Most people are omnivores too. Hi, my name is Paula Boulay. I am a National Geographic explorer and a lion conservationist.